Holy Shinto. Wow. Yeah, kind of running a little bit ragged today, but I think we're pretty much all set up. And we're going to be watching Israel Keys. So let me just mess around here with our layout. Okay. All right. Present. And all right. Yeah, I'm just feeling a little bit off today, but I just wanted to keep doing this no matter what. So, yeah. Anyway, hope you are all well as I figure this out. Share screen. Okay. Here we go. I'm just going to check and see what this looks like on my YouTube. It's been a while. Actually, what I need to do is, let's see. Okay, great. All right. Just glad that it's working. It's weird because when I look at it in StreamYard, it doesn't quite look like it used to look. But anyway, whatever. It's fine. Let's get going. So yeah, the idea of this is just to live stream all of the Israel Keys interrogation footage, which I find really fascinating, but I haven't methodically gone through yet. And while we're doing that, planning on taking some notes and hopefully creating a useful case file and just beginning to really explore this case in a deep dive. So also been wanting to get on a regular schedule live streaming. So that's sort of the plan. I know it's gonna start small. Gotta start somewhere. I've done some fun live streams before that you can find in the archives of this channel, but just haven't really ever done it on a consistent basis. So just kind of want to get started. It's winter here in Alaska. It's dark, and gotta keep busy somehow. So this is the first video we're gonna watch. I found a version of the interrogation footage via a channel called the Mob Reporter that has fixed audio. If you listen to some of the versions that are out there, it's yes, the audio has hisses and stuff like that. So importantly, somebody's gone through this already and made the audio a little bit less burnt up. So I think if we listen to the beginning of this, there's a period where so
sleep much last night?
No, not that. These are just good workout, apparently. I had muscles sore this morning. I didn't even know I had.
Really?
Which muscles?
Geez, that's a good thing you didn't get a full on.
Just reminds me of like those late night infomercials that used to sell those machines that shock your abs and stuff.
Oh.
It's like that one.
You have one? You bought one of them?
No, Kimberly did.
Oh.
But I tried it once. Just for a little
You get ripped from it?
bit. No.
The other thing I wanted to mention is that we're, like I said, we want to take notes of people he mentions. I was thinking about going through some of the books that I've read. Like I just reread American Predator by Maureen Callahan, which is an awesome book. But I just kind of approaching this as if I would like a regular case file. I used to work as a paralegal in criminal law for a long time. Anyway, we just heard him mention somebody named Kimberly. I got this thing started as like a sort of just very rudimentary list of names, or sort of like a very simple database. But anyway, I just wanted to mention that one of the things we'll be pausing for is to just take notes and stuff like that. I don't want to get too much into this because you can really sort of get distracted. But anyway, I just wanted to mention that I have another sideline here.
So you weren't too taken with the machine, basically?
No, all the ab
Yeah.
shocker things. And these things are like lifting fingernail on a chalkboard. I do set
Okay, well, Israel run through this same stuff that we do every time. We're running tape here just so we make sure we get all the facts straight. So,
All right.
I just want to confirm we didn't interrupt a meeting with your attorney when we picked up
No.
court today, right? Or at the jail today, sorry. Right?
No.
Okay. And you're here voluntarily, right?
Yes.
Okay. You understand that we can't talk about anything to do with the case involving Samantha Koenig. If you do start talking about that stuff, then we'll have to stop the interview and we'll have to take you back to jail. You understand that?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to run through your Miranda rights here. I know we've been through them before, but we're going to run through them one more time. Before we ask any questions, you must understand your rights. You have the right to remain silent.
Oh, I see that there's a few people watching. Sorry, I'm just kind of getting back into streaming. Let me pause this real quick. If you have any notes on like the audio or anything like that, I'm just double checking again. Okay, so we're in the right format anyway. If you have any notes on like the audio or anything like that, definitely drop me a line. But otherwise, I'm just gonna keep pursuing it. One thing I want to mention here, just like in the outset, in terms of like Israel and the banter, is it seems like all very pretty normal. That's one of the things that I find like very fascinating about Israel as a subject, is he doesn't present oddly. He's sort of got like in terms of like the spectrum of serial killers, he's more on like the John Wayne Gacy side than like the Richard Rodriguez, Night Stalker, who really seems like a super creep. Whereas like I think there's like a different sort of haplotype of serial killer like Gacy who presents as entirely normal, and Keyes is, I think, more on that side. The thing that I also just find incredibly fascinating about Keyes is that he doesn't fit any of the other sort of stereotypes that we have about serial killers in terms of MO, or he's just a totally unique version. So that's one of the reasons why I'm so compelled by this, besides like the whole Alaska angle. I was born and raised here in Alaska and currently reside in Juneau, so that's always an appeal. But yeah, there's just something I find deeply unique and fascinating about this guy.
If you cannot afford a lawyer, one will be appointed for you for any questioning if you wish. If you decide to answer
Ah,
questions now without
hey, Markeith, yeah.
feel free to stop answering at any time. Do you understand these rights as I've explained to you?
Yes.
And with that explanation in mind, are you willing to waive your rights and speak with us today?
Yes.
One other thing, you've got standby counsel appointed in this particular matter. I believe it's Rich Kurtner.
Yes.
And it may also be Jacqueline Walsh. I'm not 100% sure of that, but be that as it may, do you want either of those attorneys present today?
No.
Are you on any medications or any other substances that we should know about?
No.
And are you having any difficulty understanding where you're at and what's going on?
No.
I don't think so. All right, now that we're done with that, I apologize. We're going to jump in here, and the first thing I got to tell you, Israel, we talked about a little bit earlier.
Thanks for the note, Markeith. Hopefully this is better. I gotta. But one of the things what's interesting about the spiel that the investigator was given there, it might be more difficult to hear because I doubt that like they're directly mic'd in this footage. So it's always going to be kind of in the background. So hopefully we can work that out. But the investigator officer was asking Israel Keys like whether or not he wanted like his standby counsel there. He mentioned two different names. That's like a pretty odd hybrid form of counsel where like you get appointed somebody, but they're not officially appointed. And it happens in Alaska. I don't know if it's like something that comes up in other states, but it's like a really dicey sort of representation. I know that there's been case law about it here, and it's it's a problem, but it ends up being implemented in cases like this where things are just like super shaky at the beginning of a case. Because with like Keys, there's just so much weirdness at the outset of how he was arrested, like in another jurisdiction, and had information that was like applicable to like federal cases, and yeah, as we'll explore further, this case was just a handful.
That stunt yesterday in the courtroom did not go over well.
With who?
Well, with a lot of folks, not the least of which were the prosecutors. And that was the delay actually getting in here is we knew you had some legal questions, and so we reached out for him to say, hey, Israel says he's got some questions. Are you guys available to speak to him? And I couldn't even get one. One of them was in court, and the other one said, basically, what the fuck, after yesterday. So they didn't think that was too funny.
Why are they afraid I'd actually get away? That would be embarrassing for them, I guess.
No, it's. I don't think that they were looking at it from that perspective.
Lawyers just don't like excitement. That's all it is.
Well, it's more of a understanding that they thought we were kind of working towards a goal, and they're working on trying to keeping Vermont on board and doing everything.
I would have sent them an anonymous letter.
Yeah. And so they're kind of wondering where we're at with that. Where are we at with what's changed since yesterday?
More handcuffs. I don't know.
Yeah.
What's changed for you, though?
Nothing. Possibly additional charges. Well, I don't understand why it surprises me that they would take that personally at all. It really doesn't have anything to do with them.
Well, they didn't. I didn't interpret it as though they took it personally. They're very concerned and very frustrated because I think in their mind we had a business relationship set up here, and they worked very hard to kind of lay out their position and the things that they thought that they could potentially do that would be in your interest based on the information you've provided. And so they felt like we had a business relationship, and they felt like the actions that you took yesterday really kind of threw that out the window. And I gotta be honest, it kind of looked that way from our perspective too.
Oh, I disagree. I mean, honestly, and I know we can't go too far back into some of the original interviews that I had with them, but by their own words yesterday in their opening statement to the judge in court, I feel like they have not been honest with me about what my bottom line has been throughout all this, and that's what I wanted to talk to them about. So I'm not going to take it out on you guys, but I do have some serious issues right now. There's some sort of obvious communication breakdown over the entirety of this whole situation, and it's easy to sit there and say on the recording, we're not here to talk about the Koenig case, but the fact of the matter is that they're the same people that I talked to about that originally. So you understand my position on that. So I understand I'm not allowed to talk to that, and I respected their wishes about not talking to them about that either without my attorney present, but I have some serious frustrations right now regarding matters related to that. So that's
one thing that I have been thinking about is, and like needing to do more looking into, is what other extant footage is available, and like whether or not I should try to make some requests through FOIA or other local laws to see if I can find other material. I think it's possible to get other stuff, but like from what I can tell, there's like 6 hours of stuff that's out there, and it appears to be with the feds, or at least not with like the original set of local law enforcement folks that were interviewing him. Because as you can tell, he's talking about like these people don't want to talk to him about the Koenig case, which is the case from Anchorage, the one that he, was actually caught up on, the one that involved the woman who was a barista in a coffee kiosk, and where he had like the ATM card from her, and that was eventually how he was caught. So that's one thing that if anybody has like other info about if there's other footage out there, that would be interesting to hear, because it's almost like we're sort of starting like midstream in terms of his conversation with these folks. And that's one of the frustrations about looking into this case, is that like a lot of this stuff is still unreleased, at least to the general public, because there's parts of this case that were classified as being involving like terrorist, national security type stuff, which is really nuts. So anyway, I just wanted to mention that to anybody that's not familiar with the case.
That's as far as that's concerned, and I don't think it's something that can't be worked out. I've been trying to work it out from my end, but apparently there's only so much I can do. So that's what I wanted to speak to them about, and not in a matter of any specifics regarding any other case, just like general topics. Like I say, it's the topics that were discussed in open court yesterday. So it's that's a frustration to me right now, that they won't talk to me about those topics, but it's okay to talk about it in open court. That's I'm not buying that, so that's okay.
Well, there are different rules for what can be done in open court, because your attorneys are present, the judge is present, and when we're having discussions over here, we've got to adhere to a different set of rules.
Right, because you have me
Right.
sequestered away from. Right, I understand that. And I've been working on that as much as I can from my end, but there really is just like a couple very simple questions I have to ask them, and I need to get a straight answer from somebody before I can move forward on it, because I'm not getting a straight answer on my end. So,
Okay. So you think they might be able to provide you with some
yes, I
general questions about
right, not even questions related to the case, just
And are you talking about the hearing yesterday afternoon or the hearing yesterday morning?
Yes. Well, let's see.
Because you had two hearings.
Yeah, it
yesterday.
didn't. Let's see. First hearing. No, it was pretty much strictly related to the afternoon hearing.
How about if you,
I bumped up the both my mic volume and the YouTube volume, Mark Keefe. So hopefully that's better. I'm just I kept it maybe a little bit low because I can still hear like a background hum, but I guess it's better to hear it than not. But anyway, I'm sort of negotiating that. So let me know if this is better.
if you can give me a general question, we might be able to make a phone call and see if they can.
Well, okay,
Generally.
my position has been, and I made no secret about this, my position has been that I want to talk to them about the Koenig case and find out, where we stand with that.
But we can't do that, and they can't do that right now without.
Right. No, I understand that. But
So we don't want to talk about the Koenig
the
case.
impression that I spoke to him before, and he gave me the impression that he was open to that, but only if my attorneys were present. And I said, okay, fine. I'll talk to him. We'll set it up. That was a month ago. So there's communication.
Oh, I see.
That's all I can say about it because they're not here, to state their case, their side of the story. But I do know what they've been telling me, and so if he he made it clear that, at least at that time, that he was open to that suggestion that I had.
One thing I want to, it's just sort of occurring to me as I'm listening to Keys talk about like the representation issues in these cases, is like this, and it's sort of mentioned and hinted at in Maureen Callahan's book American Predator, but like this whole situation does not seem very kosher to me in terms of how the authorities, law enforcement's talking to Keys without his representation there, based on some hybrid basis here, where he has, like I said again earlier, this standby counsel, which is a unique, weird version of counsel where they're like appointed as like helpers, but like not officially appointed. It's like it's sort of sort of they're there and not there, half in, half out, which is, I don't think a lot of jurisdictions do that. So that's something that's unique to Alaska at this point in time. I'm not even sure if they do standby counsel anymore, because I remember I was working for the public defender at this time. I think this is around 2012, 2013. And we were sometimes appointed as standby counsel in cases. This is how I'm aware of this issue. And I know that there was like some case law that has been changed since then, because the actual public defender, the head of the office, raised this as an issue with the legislature. And so I think the law has been changed somewhat since then, because, he was complaining like we would get appointed as standby counsel in these cases where we might have like a conflict, or it just wasn't like a typical representation. And we were, in this weird sort of rock and hard place situation where we were only there for like a short period of time to like answer questions, almost just like a consigliere or something like that. It's just a really weird situation. But so we have him represented by standby counsel, and I'm assuming like the federal cases that he's going to talk about. And one of the reasons I think maybe they were forced into that position is like they don't really know what those cases are going to be, what jurisdictions they're going to be, because Israel hasn't told them anything yet, just only made sort of representations that he's going to maybe give them information about other cases. Anyway, I just kind of wanted to unpack that a little bit, because this whole beginning of this video must be very confusing. It's even odd to me, because I'm still trying to figure out like where exactly everything's going. But anyway, let's keep watching.
And I'm assured that. I guess it just comes down to I don't know who to believe right now. There's a hitch in the communication somewhere.
No, that's fair.
And it's all, and honestly, I wasn't that concerned about it until yesterday, and I heard some of the things that were said in court, and you know,
Some of the things that were said by the
By the
Kevin and
prosecution.
or the prosecution. Okay.
I think it was Russo. But yeah, I mean, yeah, he was, from what he said, I was not at all happy with the, and actually I had heard, a day or two before that hearing that was what was going on, and I had no idea, and then to hear it confirmed in court like that would kind of just, you know, was frustrating to me, so, you know. And honestly, I'm not gonna get all in a tizzy about it until we can at least talk about it and find out what is going on. It's not that I'm not willing to accept people's explanations for why things, for what's going on. It's just that no one's giving me an explanation.
Well, I guess my thought on that is we've tried to do that, and we'll continue to try to do that, but just keep in mind that all of us are, you know, we're bound by the rules that are
Right.
set down for us.
Yes.
And in some cases, the rules will be more restrictive than usual, and that's kind of what's going on, to be perfectly honest, you know.
Because of its high profile.
Well, yeah, there's that, and then, you know, sometimes there's just additional rules that we have to live by, and like the standby counsel thing, frankly, is kind of unusual. We don't run into that very often.
Right.
And there are some other things, I'm not going to get into it because it's kind of legal stuff, and it's not really my strong suit, but just keep in mind that the attorneys are juggling more things than they normally would.
Right.
And there are things I think that we would all like to be able to talk with you about, but we just haven't had that opportunity yet.
Right, and that's my concern.
Are these questions that you have for the attorneys, questions under the conditions that you know we have to speak about? Are these questions that they're going to be able to answer, or are they just going to tell you, we can't talk to you about that because it's not related?
There are questions they're probably not going to want to answer unless I have
Okay. So it's probably, it's not something that they can even answer in this environment right now.
not right here right now. But I would like reconfirmation on the previous statement that Feldes had told me. I mean, and he gave me that statement in an interview that was, you know, with just me, and I don't know if he was saying it as an official response or if he was just saying it to placate me, but he did say he was willing to do that, to have a meeting with me and whoever, you know, whatever counsel was required so that we could discuss things openly, and it hasn't happened.
Well, and
And you think that,
And I'm not-
and you think we're on this side stalling that?
I don't know who's stalling. Somebody's stalling it.
Okay.
That's all I can say for sure. And it's not me.
One thing we can tell you is neither Kevin nor Frank are the kind of guys that are going to tell you something just to shine you on. So if
I haven't got that impression. No.
they're not. And so if they've told you something, it is something that they believe can be done. And I don't always understand all the reasons why things work exactly the way they do in the legal
Right.
system, but they're not going to bullshit you. It's just not their
Well,
style.
right. I mean, I agree with you, and I believe you up to a point. I mean, I'm not. It's not like I'm here expecting special treatment. I have no doubts about what my part is in all this. I'm just saying that, yeah, from what I've seen and from what my dealings are with them so far, I'm more inclined to put my faith in the things I've heard from them than from certain other people. So,
You know what I'm just noticing here is, and maybe it's just this setup right now or something, but like the video, but I've noticed it before, is that this video is like super chunky, and it's like hard to tell how well the sync is between like what's actually being said by Keys and on the actual video and the audio. So I know that like a lot of this stuff is like edited pretty heavily because like I said, there's a bunch of parts of this that have been redacted and have been kept from the public record. But I'm just thinking about this in terms of like trying to like verify what's actually being said. And anyway, it's just something that I'm thinking about in terms of how accurate this actually is, but I guess anyway, the visual is not that compelling, I guess, is the bottom line there.
You know that they have gone through what they're trying to work out, and what I think they have worked out with Vermont is unheard of too. I think they
right. Well, I mean, and yeah,
we were prepared to come in and talk to you about that today, and I just the lawyers are just, they're just not sure where we stand now because of Yes Man. They want some assurance that we're still kind of going.
Well, that is a good point. I hadn't even thought of it in that light. That now that it's on the news, people there are going to read it too. So.
Well, that's the difficulty that they're having. They've been on conference calls talking to them, saying, "I thought this guy was, I thought he's on board," and so frankly, that's why we went through this trouble today to meet with you today, to just kind of, so we could give them a feel for how things are and where we stand and what we can tell them where we stand. And this was just,
Yeah, well, I mean, I know it's going to be hard for anybody to accept, but especially them, I would imagine that didn't really have anything to do with our arrangement.
And
from my perspective, yeah. So
okay, but I mean, I don't think it's something that they can't work past. They've worked through some pretty miracle stuff right now, so I think this is something they can probably. They want some assurance that we're going to be able to go back down that same road that we were on, and we've made a major turn.
I don't imagine this will stay strictly between you and me and people in this room, but I believe the people in this room know me well enough now to know that that when I say what happened yesterday has nothing to do with our arrangement, and like I say, it's not some part of some grand scheme. I already know how this all ends for me, so.
Well, I mean, it's good. I think that we can hear that from you. That's just,
yeah.
That was an opportunity that happened there, and
right. That's what it was.
Some of the things that they're concerned about and that they're getting questioned about by, like Vermont, for example, because like Jeff said, we know that they had a long conference call with Vermont today trying to explain what happened and answer questions. And Vermont, we saw a draft version of the letter, and it was everything you asked for. I mean, it truly was. And I think they're trying to answer some pretty tough questions from Vermont right now about basically what the fuck.
Right, but I mean, even still, from their perspective, I mean, come on, let's face it. Yeah, what happened yesterday? Ooh, I'm a bad guy. I tried to escape, but let's be honest. Nobody really thought I was a good guy before that. So.
Yeah, that's a great point, Markeith. Like, I was thinking about that in terms of like the way that he has like this nervous laugh at times. How harmless and pedestrian he seems is what Markeith thought. I mean, in terms of how Keyes presents here, he does really come off as not like some sort of monster. It's really like I want to say like this stuff. I've watched chunks of this before, so I know that this like starts off pretty slow, and we're talking about like, again, we're joining this whole conversation between him and law enforcement in midstream, and it's a little bit hard to parse. But what I'm focusing on, and I think what Markeith is focusing on, is just like how he presents and those sort of things that we can glean more about as it starts off slow, but it does build into some really fascinating conversations that we get to listen to. So there it is.
It's not like being escaping suddenly makes me untrustworthy. I was kind of untrustworthy before that. So
it does take on like a very creepy tenor, though. Like once you've heard that nervous laugh a few times, I don't know. Yeah, he's very interesting to try to parse and figure out, because I think he's has a sort of much more complicated facade than a lot of other serial killers. But we also don't get to witness interrogation footage like this in lots of different serial killer cases. So it's in a sense a pretty unique opportunity to spy a specimen under a microscope slide that we don't get that often.
At least you have the perspective of You not have an unrealistic perspective of what.
Yeah, I'm not, and obviously, I think you probably especially know that I'm not going to get another opportunity like that, at least not within my lifetime. So, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what to tell them. You know, all I can say is that, I mean, nothing's changed as far as my day-to-day and my reality. You know, it's still the same.
You still envision a way where we can get to meet both of our goals, where we can get what we want out of this?
I think so, but like I say, after yesterday, I had some frustrations of my own. So so that was kind of the catalyst that, you know.
So what you're saying is there's a couple things you need cleared up from them.
I do, yeah, and I mean, and honestly, like we've talked about before, like all this other stuff, this like little bargaining chips, whatever you want to call it, you know, that is all one thing, but you know, everybody knows what my bottom line concern is in all this, that I wanted this all wrapped up as quickly as possible. And like I say, I was in open court yesterday, and it's obviously not happening that way. So that's, you know, and I'm. It's not that, like I said, it's not that I'm pointing the finger, placing blame on anyone. I haven't even had an explanation of why things are the way they are. So how do I know whose fault it is, or if it's anyone's fault? I don't even know that. So, but that doesn't mean it didn't, you know, kind of. You know, because I remember all the interviews we've had. I remember what was said since day one, and my perspective hasn't changed on any of that. Yeah, granted, we've talked about a lot more things since then, but those are all things that I already had in my head before. Just because they're out on the table now, that doesn't change anything of what I wanted originally, what we talked about originally. It's all still the same issue. So. Anyway, that's okay. It's all good.
So all that being said, where can we go from here?
I honestly, I don't know. I don't know that we can go anywhere until I get some straight answers on, you know, what I was just talking about.
So just to again, sort of fill in the gaps for anybody that's not super familiar with this case and this negotiation that's going on here. What Keyes wants is basically two things. He wants his story to be kept out of the news as much as possible, for it to not be publicized, because what he's offering is like giving the government more information about unsolved cases, because he'd only been caught for this one case involving Samantha Koenig, a coffee barista up here in Anchorage, Alaska. But he had information about many other cases. It's speculated about how many others, but he gave law enforcement information about at least one other killing. I think maybe more than that, but anyway, that's the first thing he wants, is for it to not be publicized as much as possible, because he doesn't want to burden his family with all this information. The other thing he wants is to get an execution date. He wants to be killed, and so, you know, the case to be wrapped up essentially. And the only like precedent I'm aware of for this, and that I was just double checking on, the title of the book is The Executioner Song, which I read some years ago by Norman Mailer. It's a really amazing book that profiles this guy who went on a killing spree back in the 70s named Gary Gilmore. And at the time when this happened in the 70s, there had been like a moratorium on the death penalty in the US. So nobody had been killed for like a decade or so. And he basically forced the government to execute him by a firing squad. And so I think there's some interesting parallels between Gilmore and Keyes. And what I was just thinking about there is whether or not Keyes also like was trying to prescribe the way that he was killed, and he might even also wanted to be killed by firing squad. So that's something I should check on. But yeah, it's just a interesting and almost unprecedented request here that Keys is asking the government to do. So you can see why it would be difficult to handle these circumstances as somebody talking to him in this interview, let alone as like a lawyer and the government trying to figure out how to lay this all out before the court. Anyway, let's keep watching.
Because really that has been my bottom line all along, and you know, I won't be a bit. I think I know what's going on, but I need confirmation before I decide to take the next step or steps, whatever it takes to.
And I don't know specifically what you're talking about, but I mean, it's very possible that it's something, whatever your questions are, that they may not be able to answer them because.
Right, for other reasons. Yeah, no, I understand. I mean, I know there's, regardless of how unusual this situation is, that doesn't mean we can make it even more unusual. So.
I mean,
I know they still have guidelines and rules they have to follow. You know, I'm not expecting all the answers.
Nobody wants to cross a line that we've been told by a judge can't be crossed. And
right.
They can't do that. Nobody can. And so.
Yeah. No. I know.
I mean, all I can tell you is you're going to have to use your judgment on the information that you're getting and see if you can do from it.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do, but. But it's it's not an easy thing when you get everything through a middleman, as it were. So, like I say, I don't know who to put the blame on right now. I'm pretty sure I know, but you know, I was trying really hard to work with everybody on this, keep everybody happy, but as we all know, that doesn't always happen. So, and I don't want this to turn into any more. My whole concern with in all of this, and I know what's going to happen. If I have to do it, I will. But you know, if I have to take the next step and just freaking, you know, it's going to turn into even more of a three-ring circus and more
that nobody wants.
Right, and nobody wants that, and I don't think they want that. So that's why I thought it was in everyone's best interest that, you know, that we could all have a meeting, you know, like at all parties involved. But once again, sit down and have a meeting, just like in the beginning. Like when there was no question about the legality or whether this was proper or improper. You know what? It was all, there was nothing weird or unusual about that. It was a standard interview, and there was no objections or court orders or paperwork or petitions. You know, all this stuff that's happened since then, it seems like it's done nothing. It hasn't changed anything. I still come over here and talk to you about stuff. It hasn't changed any of that. It hasn't changed my bottom line at all. All it's done is made everything more complicated for everyone else involved. And at the bottom of that, I don't get a straight answer on anything. Well, I mean, maybe I have been. I hope I have been, at least on a few things, but definitely not on everything. Because I'm not there. I don't know. I don't see all the emails. I don't see all the paperwork. I don't hear what's said. You know. And it's not even that I want to hear or know all that stuff, but I'd at least like to hear and know about the stuff that pertains to me and what my interest in it is. So.
I think one of their concerns, and I think we all share it, is that yesterday's actions, regardless of why you took them, are just going to create new hurdles for them from the standpoint of, I mean, literally they had something, I really think it was just about agreed to. It may have even been agreed to, and I just don't know it. But like I said, we saw a draft version of the letter that had, I think, everything that you discussed or wanted. So they had achieved that. And then that statement yesterday has now endangered that. In addition, you know, I think they're concerned now that maybe you have a different agenda than what you've told us because you were very specific. You know, I don't want any media attention. This has created a bit of a frenzy. I got to believe that your next court appearance is going to be standing.
There's going to be
There's probably going to be a lot of vigilantes guarding the door on that one.
I'm afraid there's going to be, there was only a couple meet and greet people there yesterday. I'm afraid tomorrow's going to have a fair amount more media people, unfortunately.
And then arguably, one of the probably biggest potential hurdles now is, we know you've indicated that you want to represent yourself on the things for which you're not charged. And this could be a huge hurdle now that didn't previously exist.
Right. No, I get that, yeah.
These are all things that all of us are thinking about, but to be honest, they're probably more focused on it than the rest of us. And you may not have thought about those things, but that's what they're mulling over.
Right. No, I get that. I get what you're saying. And honestly, I really hadn't thought of it at all until you mentioned it. I was concerned about the media coverage, not really thinking about the effect it would have on the things we've discussed, thinking more about, that is my bottom line. I didn't want a bunch of press and didn't want a bunch of drama. And honestly, I could have lived with the drama as long as I had been successful in escaping. But since I didn't, now I'm like, man, I really wish I hadn't created all this drama.
So that's, I was just going through, there's a really excellent resource that's an Israel Keys timeline on this website called lastknowncontact.com. And I thought, I was pretty sure I knew what the reference was there, sort of sub rosa under the surface that everybody was talking about, where, the whole conversation is essentially aligning what this event was that happened recently, where Israel sort of made things more difficult. And I think it was referenced just directly there for the first time, but Israel Keys had like an attempted escape from a courtroom during a hearing that was almost successful. And so that's I think the inciting event of this discussion that they're having right now, where everybody's talking about how things got all mixed up. And, there's this agreement that was spelled out in this letter that they're referencing between Vermont and Alaska and the feds that had all these deal points that Israel had asked. So that's essentially what the subtext of this whole conversation is about, is this escape attempt that was foiled. And yeah, the other thing I was thinking about, since Mark Heath's comment earlier, is that Israel's laugh to me sounds almost like a Tom Cruise type laugh. It's like not like a genuine laugh, but a laugh that almost signals something else and is also very creepy. Anyway, I just wanted to mention that because I was paging through some stuff to try to add the context for myself here.
Well, maybe we could we could step out and I can make a phone call over and just express some things. Just let them know some concerns. I don't know what the specific questions are. It sounds like they're probably questions that wouldn't be able to be answered in this setting with the people that are here.
No, probably not. But I mean, you get the gist of what I'm saying. I think, and I'm not.
I appreciate that your honesty, and then
I have no problem with other people speaking for me. The bottom line is I got to make all the decisions in the end. I'm not going to be coerced or tricked into something that I don't know I'm getting into at this point. So yeah, I mean, if you need to pass on in your own words whatever you think is going on, go for it. And the more communication we have on the issue, the quicker it can get resolved, and I can get to the bottom of whatever's going on my end. So,
All right, well, let us step out for a minute and we'll be back.
All right.
Yeah. So I just confirmed on the timeline that the escape attempt was indeed the previous day on May 23rd. Man. What's also really interesting is that there's all these other entries in here talking about how, we know that Israel was interviewed by the FBI, for example, like on the 22nd, but as far as I know, we don't have the actual record of that. So it's really frustrating. I'd like to have like the whole enchilada. Timeline here. Okay, so it looks like maybe we can fast forward a little bit because I don't want to just sit here and watch him behaving. Oh, there's some interesting little moments, it looks like, when he's yawning and stuff. Let's see here. Okay. Okay, good. Looks like they get him a beverage. One other interesting thing that I think we're going to see more of in these sort of moments, where the interstitial moments where we're sort of waiting for the investigators to get back, is, and I wonder how much of it's actually on the footage, I don't recall, but one of the things that Israel negotiated for was like the officers would get him sort of creature comforts, like they get him like cigars to smoke and all this sort of different stuff, sodas that he liked, to induce him to talk. So there are things like that we can sort of log and think about. So I think up here they get him like maybe a coffee or something like that. Not that that's outre, but it's not something you typically see unless the law enforcement really wants something from a subject in an interview. Just speeding it up a little bit here as we wait for. Okay, here we go.
Moving was even more of a process now.
Oh, so that was the end of that session, huh? Okay, I didn't realize that.
One of the lawyers got you this. Lawyers.
So I think that was shorter than I thought. It looks like I've been streaming for close to an hour. And I think what I said was that I wanted to go just like one session per stream here. So we might call it for today. I was thinking maybe we'd stream for like more like an hour and a half or 2 hours. So just trying to think of how to break this up. But yeah, I mean, I think that was a good first entry. It was just sort of wanting to establish a little bit of a thing here. So I think the idea is I would like to do this at least once a week. There isn't a ton of footage in this one, as I said. I know that there's a few other things that we could stream beyond the 5 or 6 sessions. So that get us like another month or so of weekly streaming. But I know that there's like the car stop that's when he actually gets captured in Texas, like that. There's footage of that. That's about an hour and a half. So that's another stream. There's a ton of like audio of interviews with like other people involved in the case, like his girlfriend at the time and just various people that are involved. So that's other potential material, although it's only audio and not directly related to keys. But that's just sort of what I'm thinking about in terms of the grist for the mill here, because I do want to just really keep diving into keys. So yeah, I think we'll pause and stop here for now. It was a little bit of an impromptu stream. I only put out a notice of it like yesterday. So I do really appreciate you folks like Markeef stopping in and supporting and offering their 2 cents. But yeah, I do want to part of what I want to do here is just get started on like regular stream stuff, because I think it's really interesting to go through this material and have other people's insights, especially in a case like this case, Keys. One of the reasons why I thought this would be a good subject is just because there's so many different areas that it touches on, both in terms of like disciplines in life, but also geographically. And it's just a very complex, interesting case. And I don't know if you guys have read American Predator, but I couldn't recommend that highly enough. Oh, hi, Patty Cat. Yeah, it is a really interesting case, and it's just disturbing as well. I mean, some of the accounts, like even in American Predator, were like so grim that it was difficult for me to get through parts of the book. And I know that there's another book out there that's been mentioned that I need to get. So I'm planning on doing that. If anybody has any other suggestions for resources that I should check out, yeah, distributing or disturbing, either one. But I definitely would love to hear any insights or comments about other. I think there's only like the two main books on the case, but if anybody has any other suggestions for like material for me to check out or cover, I'd definitely be all ears. There's a channel that I found yesterday as I was doing some browsing that has like a ton of audio. I'm trying to remember the person's name, but they had like a ton of stuff that I hadn't seen anywhere else. Like I said, like interview audio from people, and yeah, Markeith has a comment about the Imholt case, and yeah, that's a really funny. It's funny that you're into that as well, Markeith. It's a weird overlap, and one of the things that's sort of funny about the way that I've been pursuing these channels, I just sort of like head to my interests, and a lot of them don't necessarily connect. So there's like a lot of really interesting little niches that get combined. But yeah, Markeith was talking about this Aaron Imholt case, which is fascinating because it's this case of this other streamer who got caught up in like a revenge porn case involving yet another very niche streamer named Nick Ricada, who's like a law streamer. Oh, Bladed article mentioned it first. Okay. And it's just really interesting because it's like you're watching this guy essentially talk himself into like pretty severe consequences for like what started out as like a very minor case that he was going to get away with without jail. And he just ended up serving like a week in jail, like last week. And it's a case that became pretty predictable, but like the first thing that I did about it was like earlier this summer. It was like months ago. And like just based on the stuff that he was saying and like the little bit of info that was out there, I was like, I knew, like I was able to predict that his plea agreement that he had reached was going to get rejected, which is pretty uncommon. Like judges don't often step in, but it was just pretty obvious what was the track that thing was going to happen. And it's been interesting following that. There's a number of other shows out there that have been chronicling that case, which is much different than the Israel Keys case. But I don't know. It's just interesting, like what sort of whimsies you end up getting caught up into. So anyway, like I said, I think we're going to stop it there. But I super appreciate everybody that tuned in for this first Keys stream. And again, definitely encourage anybody to, yeah, he really is. He's a consummate jackass. And it's fascinating because we were just talking about the disposition that we see from Keys, like a serious, very bad serial killer. And he comes off as like meek as a lamb. Whereas Aaron Imholt like tries to, the way that he presents himself is like as if he's you know, much more badass than anybody else ever. So the contrast is striking, you know, in terms of like their actual. But I find like Aaron Imholt so annoying these days that it's difficult for me to even watch him. So I haven't been following it as closely this last month or so. But it's a striking study in the way that we present ourselves to the world, you know, and the stories that we tell ourselves, you know, paraphrasing the paraphrasing the intro to Joan Didion essay. You know, we all sort of have legends in our head about who we are and what we do and why we matter. And I think that's what's interesting to me on the whole about a case like the Imholt case is just the gulf between who he says he is and who we can see demonstrably who he is. And in a lot of ways, that's one sort of prong of the Israel Keys case that's fascinating, is that he is essentially exactly who he tells us he is in word, but there are parts of the way that he comes off where it would be easy to think he's somebody else. So yeah, if anybody has any suggestions about other material to dig into, I'm planning on getting another scheduled stream up for next week. If anybody has any suggestions about like the timing of the streams, I know this may not be the most convenient time, but I am in Alaska, and so there's like 4 hours difference between here and the East Coast. But I'd be interested to hear, you know, and maybe I'll put up another. I did post an item on the Israel Keys subreddits. Maybe I'll post something on Reddit just to solicit people's input about when would be a good time to stream, what would be good to stream. But I think next week we'll be streaming the May 29th stream that we were just seeing the intro here too. So anyway, I think we're going to end it here. And again, I really appreciate everybody's time and participation in this first little bit of an experiment. And yeah, I'm going to go get some dinner. It's 6 p.m. here in Alaska. And hope you have a good Monday.